Friends, I'm joined today by yet another exciting guest. And not only does this guest reach some amazing milestones in their own personal life, but yet they have the privilege of consulting DecaMillionaires all around the globe. And so, as I mentioned before, I love hearing the stories, in the trench stories from those who've achieved some monumental things, as well as those who guide business owners to help them achieve some monumental things. With that being said, Alexis Sikorsky is joining me today. Alexis, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, Justin. Thanks for having me.
Now, right off the bat, you and I do not have the same accents. Where are you joining me from?
I'm joining you from outside London, but my accent is, well, guilty as charged, French. I'm
Yeah.
actually Swiss, but French speaking Swiss. So it's a little less horrible than being French.
That's awesome. Well, it doesn't sound like my Southern Georgia accent from here in the United States, that's for sure. But you and I were just chatting off camera on some of the things that you've achieved in your life. But before we dive into the business things, let's talk about family life. You have 4 children and you guys love to scuba dive. So talk to me about the family at this point.
So I have 4 kids, 24 years old, 22 years old, 3 years old, and 3 months old. I'm done. Promise.
I saw that
But
whenever
don't
I
tell
saw
my
the show
wife.
notes. I saw the show notes and I told my team, I said, there is no way at this phase of life that I want to have a 3-year-old, a 3-month-old. But I'm sure they're going to keep you young forever.
Young forever or dead real soon, one or the other.
That's awesome. So you and I both have a passion to scuba dives. Tell me, why scuba diving?
I started at 15 years old, culminated like 15 years ago when I had a bad incident in Galapagos and got half my face paralyzed. Quit diving for 10 years, but then the kids went into diving and now I used to be an avid diver, like tech diving and everything. Now I just dive recreationally with the kids,
Just for fun and recreation at this point.
just for fun.
So in your business journey, you've reached some pretty amazing milestones. Tell the audience about your journey as a business owner.
Okay, I promised you pre-show that I'm going to be quick, so I'll do my best. Started in 2000, banking software company. Well, started as a bespoke development internet company in Switzerland, acquired a banking software, grew the company from 2 people, zero revenue to 11 million revenue, 2.5 million EBITDA in 2007. So like I'm the king of the world. I'm making 2.5 million per year. I spend like crazy. And then 2008. And if you remember, 2008 was not a fantastic year for banking software, right? So basically in one day, lost 75% of my revenues. And from 2008 to 2015, it's an absolute grind. Like it's all about surviving, mortgaging my house. Like I had everything, tears and sweat and blood and all my money in the company. Came 2015, I get a phone call from a private equity. So all your listeners are entrepreneurs. So you're used to that phone call, like, right, once a week. Hey, we're fantastic private equity, want to buy your company, blah, blah. You never answer, obviously. This one, for some reason, I answered. Was working with my brother. My brother convinced me. He said, hey, they're French. They know your culture. They come from software. They build a PE by selling their software companies. Okay, let them come. So they came, flew from Paris to Geneva, saw the company. And at that time, so we're 2015, I'm 6 years in the grind. And by some creative accounting, you could say the company is break even. But like after 6 years of loss, pretty much. So like, and we can discuss that, but I was exhausted. I was mentally and physically exhausted, and exhaustion is a major thing in the people I consult. Um, so basically I told them, guys, it's very nice of you to come. I would sell. I promise I would sell. I'm tired, exhausted, but at the moment my company is worth nothing. So I make you a deal. You come back in 2 years. In 2 years, we'll be profitable and you'll get absolute priority to buying me in 2 years. And they say, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. They say, we're going to do it a little bit differently. You're going to go home. You're going to do a very serious business plan in where you want to be in 2 years. And we'll come back next week and we talk. I said, okay. So with my brother, we made a very creative business plan, obviously, because a business plan you're allowed. That's also something you talk about. You're not allowed to lie about the past, but a business plan, you're allowed to be creative. So they saw my business plan and say, okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to buy your company now on the value that you think it's going to be in 2 years, and we're going to pay you 85% cash and 15% earnout. And I thought it was a joke. Honestly, I started calling friends. Are you playing a practical joke on me or something? But that's what happened. So they bought 77% of my company at, I think at the time it was 11 time EBITDA in 2 years, which if I remember well was 2.5 million. 85% cash. And you know what? 2 years later, I end up making more money out of the earnout that I did with the 77%. That's something I'll be happy to discuss also. So that's bring us 2015. I stay on board as a CEO till 2019. 2017, 2018, we acquire a company that's twice our size. So suddenly we go from 15 million revenue to 50 million revenue. And the CEO of this company, in all fairness, was like, we put him head of sales, and I was working with him on a daily basis, and it was ridiculous. Like, I went to the private equity and said, this guy is 10 times better than I am. He's older, he's more experienced, he's been working in an international, he should be the CEO. So I asked them to chairman me, by the way, best job in the world,
Yep.
chairman. Full salary. Instead of working 16 hours a day, you work one morning a month. Perfect job. And 2020, I actually sold my shares to the PE. I said, guys, like I had a new wife, a new life, new country. I said, I want out. And they gave me a very, very, very nice 9-figure valuation for the remaining of my shares. And I'm out. And last transaction is 2 years ago when they sold the company for 60% more than what they offered me. So everybody wins.
Wow. That's one of those PE stories that doesn't, it actually sounds too good to be true. But I know it, I've seen this multiple times, Alexis, but I've also seen the opposite side where business owners don't have the results that you dealt with in the PE world. So I guess what made your particular PE story sound so good versus what we often hear in the marketplace?
There's two answers to that. One is what I did and what I should have done.
Okay.
I got incredibly lucky. I really, really got lucky. There were good guys. I had no way to know they are good guys. I think most of the PE are good guys. And I think when you end up with story where the PE is not good guys, it's your fault. It's not their fault. Because somehow, I mean, everybody consider completely normal that a PE does 6 months of due diligence on your company and you do zero on the PE. So one of the things I really advise my founders is do your due diligence on your PE. And like there is technique, it's not that complicated. The first thing I always make them do is, first of all, you tell them that they find it completely acceptable. Again, they do due diligence. Say, okay, thanks for your offer. Now I'm going to take 2 weeks and do a due diligence on your private equity. And you tell them, can you please give me the name of 5 people you bought that I can call and have a chat with them. So they give you 5 names. You obviously don't call these people. And then you go on the website and it's very easy to find who they bought. You find them on LinkedIn and you call them. And that's the strongest due diligence.
So after this exit that you went through, you went back to school and you made a statement in where we were talking about, you found out that many business schools are teaching very poor information and they're teaching basically the same mistakes that we make in business on a regular basis. What are the mistakes? And you mentioned even just a second ago that, hey, I made some mistakes. I did get lucky, but I also made some mistakes.
But it's not so much the business school, it's the students. Like in a business school, lots of students are entrepreneurs, right? So I was talking with them and said, man, they're making the same mistake I made. And there's several mistakes, but I made. Like I always say, if I started my company now, knowing what I know now, I'll sell it 5 years earlier and 50 million more. So cost of my mistake is basically 5 years, 50 million. That's what I try to save to my client. Just a few examples. I purposely emphasized 2008 when I told my story. And I purposely said, oh, I was the king of the world. I was spending and basically I didn't have a war chest.
Yep.
And that's the number one mistake. And that's so common. If you're a small company, I want 9 months of burnout in your bank account. That's one mistake. Other mistake that I see the most is not being able to transition from an amateur company to a professional company. It's like a football team, right? You're an amateur football team. You don't really care who is your linebacker or whatever. You're an amateur team. And at some point, you have to switch to professional. And then your cousin who's doing the books for you might be a fantastic guy. He's not your CFO though. You know what I mean? It's transitioning from amateur to professional. It's difficult. It's one of you have two types of problem in business and basically in the world. You have stuff that you make too complicated, that are easy and you make too complicated, which is majority of issues. This one is not. It is a complicated issue. You have to do it well. It's not easy.
So I know you wrote a book called Cashing Out where you talk about several of these problems and some of these complicated things, but I got to ask you a really pointed question. How much does it take to exit a company and feel like you have enough money to make ends meet? What's that number for most business owners?
It's funny because it's totally counterintuitive because everybody will think, oh, it really varies. It's a number is different for everybody. It's actually not that different. There is kind of a universal number of how much you have to sell your company. And this number is 40 million.
Why 40 million?
Very, very simple math, right? To not work, basically, you need $1 million per year. Hear me out. I'm not talking private jet and mega yacht, right? I'm talking nice house, nice secondary house, good school for your kids, nice vacation, some stuff to make your life easier. Basically, you need $1 million per year to live. And other thing you want, especially if you have kids, you don't want to live on your capital, right? You don't want to spend the money you have. So you want to live on the interest of your assets. So basically 5% per year, right? Safe. 40 million give you 2 million per year. Taxman takes half. That's 1 million per year. That's 40 million that give you the lifestyle you need to never have to work a day in your life.
If we sell the firm or the business for 40 million, then depending on where they're located in the States and how the deal is structured, though, they're going to also have M&A advisor, broker comp, all those fun things, taxes. Maybe they have some earnouts, clawbacks, things of that nature involved. So is 40 million even enough? Or is that including all those things based on your calculation?
I'd say ideally 40 million net in your bank, but then if you can have a little less than that, if you're smart enough to optimize, like maybe you don't have to give half to the tax man. Maybe you can give a little less than that. And keep in mind, I have European numbers in mind, so it's a little less in the US. But that's the ballpark. I'm lucky enough to have all my companies in geography that has no capital gain tax. So basically, when you get 100 million for your company, you get 100 million. You don't have to give half of that to the government.
Whenever you say $40 million out to that business owner for the first time, do their mouth open like, oh, I got to get to 40 million?
Yeah.
Or do they say, oh yeah, let's go? What's your response?
No, they tend to think it's way less than that for several reasons. First of all, they completely underestimate the extra cost of not working. First of all, you have tons of free time and that's going to imply expensive hobbies one way or another. And also, like, at the end of the day, lots of your costs are in your company, right? Your travel tend to be in your company and all that. Like, for me, like the biggest thing I was missing after I left my company was the PA. I had somebody working full time for me. And when I wanted to take my family on holiday, I would talk to my PA and say, book my holidays. And you don't have that anymore. So like it's extra cost.
Yeah. In fact, it's interesting you say that because my audience knows kind of my story, and you and I didn't talk too much about it, but whenever I sold my company, it was, we could, my wife and I could retire and we could live a lifestyle that we're used to living. But, I like to travel. I like to play. I like to spend a lot of times in the ocean or in the mountains. And I'm used to people scheduling things for me. I'm used to this lifestyle. And then we had still kids at home. And Alexis, I came home and wife's like, get out of the house. You're driving me crazy. Leave. You're
Yeah.
driving me crazy. So she's like, you got to do something. So I said, well, okay, I'll go back and I'll teach business owners how to do what I've done. But whenever I tell them the number, the same thing you're talking about, I literally see the mouths open like, I got to have how much money? I'm like, this is what it's going to take for you to maintain the same level of lifestyle that you're used to. So whenever they say, okay, Alexa, I hear 40 million, okay, you get their mouth off the ground like we would see in a cartoon commercial. They're now looking at you. The next question they're going to say is probably, how in the world do I do this? How do you answer that type of question?
Question number one, is it what you want to do? I mean, I usually say you'd be surprised, but you wouldn't be surprised by how many entrepreneurs have a lifestyle business.
Oh, yeah.
They're making $1 million per year from their company. They're perfectly happy like that, and God bless them.
Yep.
Like, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just, I cannot help these people because they don't need me, because it's all about operational optimization, tax optimization, which is stuff I know nothing about. So first of all, you need to be sure that's what the person wants. And that's always the first question in my first phone call when somebody called me to ask for my help. I'd say, what is it you want to do? I usually don't deal with people who don't want to exit their company. So I have a few criteria. First of all, you need to want that. And you need to want that for at least 50 million, because if your dream is to exit 5 million, it's boring for me. It's not what I do. Again, I don't bring tons of value. And it has to be feasible in like 3-4 years. I don't believe in 10 years plan. I'm too old. I had my first heart attack last year. A bit dishonest to my clients, say, oh, I'm gonna take you in a 10 years plan. That's very unlikely I'll be alive in 10 years. So
Yep.
so it has to be done in 4 or 5 years. It's much easier than you think. Like, right, 40 million, you're talking 4 million EBITDA. I mean, you're talking what, 20 million to 20 million revenues? Not that hard. When you think like that, it's not the end of the world. I talked to a client now that I started with him a year and a half ago. He was $1.5 million revenue. He's now 9 this year. He's going to be 20 next year, and that's it. He's being sold next year for 50, maybe 70 million, because I'm being super sioux on this one to get a better multiple. But like, it's not the end of the world. It's not that hard.
I'm actually going to be on stage in front of 1,000 some odd business advisors here next week. And one of my slides actually says generational wealth is created exponentially. In other words, in a very short period of time, that you can go from zero to a $40 million business literally in 3 to 4 years
Yeah.
and shorter if you just had the formula. And whenever I say that, Alexis, you've seen this. It's like they just have a space over their face, like, there's no way. And I want to say, well, you're right. And that type of thinking, there's no way. But what if we could show you a pathway? So whenever you start talking about this pathway, what might you tell somebody the very first thing they need to do in order to exponentially scale? It goes from 1.5 million, I think you said, to 9 million in revenue in a year and a half. What's the very first thing they need to think of in terms of moving a business that direction?
Well, first of all, I get one step forward than you. I say not only it can happen in 3-4 years, but if it doesn't happen in 3-4 years, there's a good chance it won't happen in 20.
Well, I agree with that. Well said. Well said.
You have 3 levels, right? One is you reduce your cost. That's fantastically useful. People never do that, and it's easy. It's actually super easy and useful. That's an immediate EBITDA growth. Then you have your organic growth. So for that client, which is unusual for me, it's organic growth. Like, I just find him help. Well, it's very unfair to say I find for him. He found a way to increase his marketing dramatically, and it's mainly organic growth. And then my favorite way in most of my clients is M&A. Like, keep in mind, we live in a world of as much as it's hard to raise money, it's uber easy to get money for a leverage buy, for an LBO or any kind of leverage transaction, right? I say, tell my client, you have 1 million in your bank account. That's 4 million you can use to buy something with the bank leverage, right? Plus, you're only risking 1 million of you and 3 million of your bank money. So then that's it. And that's $500,000 of EBITDA you can buy with 1 million of cash. So that goes super fast.
At what phase of the game do we start using leverage dollars, either through the bank or using through some type of private equity firm?
Yeah, a year earlier than you think.
A year earlier than we think.
Yeah, day one. If you give me a little bit of ammunition, you need to have, if you don't have 500,000 in your bank account, it's hard. It's hard, and using PE to leverage an acquisition is extremely complicated
Right.
because PE like majority deals. So it doesn't work. If you don't have a quarter of the value of what you want to acquire in cash, I usually don't do the deal. Exceptions are very, very sweet deal when you can use some kind of mezzanine loan or stuff like that, but I don't like it. Like if you don't have 500,000 of cash, like don't play. Get your 500,000 in cash first. Like and then at that point you're good for M&A. Like M&A is fantastic.
Does it matter what industry business owners are in for M&A? And from your experience, could it be a service-based industry? Is it IT? Is it manufacturing? What do you see works best?
In terms of what you're buying,
In terms of the type of company they're trying to scale. So, you've got some people that may say, hey, I want to own, like I was just literally talking to a veterinarian that owns 4 practices and then wanted to scale from 4 locations to 25 locations. And I literally said, hey, we need to consider private equity to do this. It's a great, and they had a 500,000 in the bank. And so they could scale, but does it matter the type of industry they're in for private equity?
so M&A is good for all industry, and private equity is interested in all industry. The strategy is not the same though.
Mm.
Like for example, let's say, very good example, very, very easy M&A. You just buy more veterinarians, right?
Right.
There is no rocket science. You find, and your skill as an M&A guy, you don't have really economies of scales, maybe a little bit, but not much. Increase your buying power a little bit, but not much. So it's all about finding good deals, right? Like buying cheap vets, basically. And ideally, every build-up business is tricky, right? When the value you bring is just make it bigger, it's tricky. It's not easy because where do you bring your value, right? Where do you're just buying and make it bigger will not change your multiple. So well, it will at some point, but you have to be really big. So these are tricky deals, and I would almost treat it like a distress deal. I'd say, okay, where can I buy vets that I can buy for $1?
Right.
And where can I buy 50 of them real fast? That's how we treat a deal like that. Then if you're, for example, in the software industry, right? That's the exact opposite. You don't want to buy a competitor. Like, let's say you are Microsoft Word. You don't want to buy Apple Pages for many reasons, but one of them is you basically spend your whole life telling the market this product is crap. And then you buy it and say, oh, actually, it's a very good product. We're going to merge it. And then it's very complicated to merge together. So in that case, you need to integrate. You need to go vertical or you need to go horizontal, mainly vertical. Like, okay, what are the functionalities that are missing in my software? So M&A is good in every industry. It's not always the same strategy.
I want to take you back in your story to whenever you sold your business. You went back, you put together this business plan, you came to your potential now partners at that, or soon to be partners. What were you thinking internally as a business owner? Were you thinking these guys have lost their mind, or was, yeah, I think they lost
Exactly
their
that.
mind?
Say, okay, these guys are nuts. Like they're completely crazy. My business plan is uber optimistic. Why would they commit 85% of the money? And that's, I'd say the main lesson learned is they know you're being optimistic in your business plan. And that's an understatement. They know that they're not idiots, but what they know that you don't know, it's the value they bring.
Right.
Right. So I was considering growing the EBITDA from 0 to 2.5 million. And they thought, okay, the guy's going to grow it from 0 to 1.5 probably. So I'll grow it for another 2. Me, the PE, many examples, but just 2 that are what a good PE is doing. They went through my staff. They love my staff. They love my management. We didn't have a CFO. And I said, guys, I'm not going to hire a CFO. You're the boss. Anyway, find me a CFO. And they find a guy who was fantastic. That's still my good friend and still work with him from time to time. And that's immediately a value, right? They know all the banks. So they were French. We didn't have clients in French. They And not only they know them, but they know them intimately. They say, hey, Roger, talk to Alexis. He has a great product. That saves you 6 months in the sales cycle. And the last one is anecdote, funny. So we had our main office in Geneva and we have a big development center in Singapore. In between, we had a leased internet line that were costing us, I don't remember, but something around 120, $150,000 per year. It was very expensive and we had a very, very, very good reason. It was absolutely unavoidable. Like for question of latency of something and it's boring. It was really indispensable. So the guy from the PE came, looked my number and said, that's too much. And I explained to him why there was no other way. He said, okay, let's try something. Pick up his phone, call the CTO and say, hey, just a thing, next month I'm shutting down the internet line between Geneva and Singapore. So you should rush finding a solution. And I told him, I said, you're gonna be screwed. There is no way. Guy found a way. And that's $120,000 per year saved. And by the way, that's 1.2 million on your final check, right?
Right.
That's
Exactly.
also like the difference between lifestyle and when I was during my earnout period, I was once a month, I was going to Paris to see the private equity. And they say it's weird, like you never expense your plane. You said, are you crazy?
Yeah.
If I expense my plane, it cost me I save me $100. If I don't expenses, it's $1,000 in 2 years for me. I'm not going to expense anything. They were dying laughing.
Oh
They,
yeah.
they, they, and when I made more money with the earnout, he said, "Damn, I should have capped the earnout. Why didn't you cap the earnout?" He said, "Honestly, we are very close friends now." He said, "Be honest with me. If I capped the earnout, would you have signed anyway?" Said, "You kidding? I didn't even think I would get a penny of the earnout. I thought I was like I made the deal of the year and you were idiots. Of course I would have signed." He said, "Damn." And then say, at the end of the day, you cannot blame me for playing better than you at a game you set the rules. So now we had a great relationship.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Alexis, I want to bring this down to the ground, but I want to, a lot of our listeners are in this lifestyle business by default of their own, but they're going, holy cow, I'm stuck. Unless I do something, I'm going to be working till I'm dead. And I've said in this microphone dozens of times, and you just, from the opposite side of the pond, so to speak, just said the same thing that you can create generational wealth in as little as 18 to 36 months. It can be done if you set your mind to it. So, for that individual, that business owner who is literally doing the best they can right now that they know how to do, at this particular point, what advice would you give to them?
First, you starve. So your car is not on the company anymore. Your wife is not on the company anymore. Your son is not on the company anymore. Your vacations are not on the company anymore. I don't want a penny of your lifestyle on your company because all that money I need for growth. So the first step is you starve. You're making $8,000 a month from now on. And that's what you live on. So if you didn't get some saving before that, too bad. But that's the first thing. You starve because every penny is going back in the company. And they hate me. The one who want to transition, they hate me. They really do because
Yeah.
I'm a hawk. I will see everything. At the end of the day, I'm an advisor, right? You're the same. At the end of the day, they do what they want. And the only thing you can do if they don't listen to you is to quit. But
Right.
like if they want to do it's a hard transition to make to go from lifestyle to growth.
Well, I was just in a meeting literally on Thursday and Friday. You'll appreciate this with a business owner. It's worth about 2.5 million on business right now. And he wants to get to 10 million and he's got 10 years to do it. I'm like, dude, we're not doing it in 10 years or I'm not working with you. We're going to do it in 4 years max. We should be able to pull it off in 36 months. And he's like, there's no way. Then as we were going through this, he kept saying, well, that means I got to pay myself less. I'm like, absolutely. You're paying yourself 500,000 a year. We're going to drop it down to 250,000 a year. And we're going to take the 250 and we're going to deploy it back in the company. And then we're not going to pay anymore. He's like, I'm like, do you want to pay ordinary income or do you want a capital asset that's going to set your life up the rest of your life? And he could probably live in his particular location, his lifestyle. He'd put him at about $20 million of total net worth. He could probably pull that off. But Alexis, when I told him that, he just looked at me like, you're going to break me. I'm like, no, until you put your back against the wall, until you burn the ships, as Cortez said, you're not going to move forward. So I appreciate you saying that. So, we've got this book here. I want to talk a little bit about your book, Cashing Out, and where can people find a little bit more about your book and maybe connect with you?
Oh, I have one blessing with my name is I'm not John Smith. So if you want to find me, you'll find me. Go on, go on LinkedIn, type Alexis Sikorsky. I'm the only one. So I'm easy to find. My book is on Amazon. The book served a special purpose. I'm actually happy and proud of that. Is like when you have the same thing, Justin. When you work with people, you're expensive. We're expensive people.
Right.
So there's tons of people that cannot afford us. And the book was designed to help these people. And if you follow the book, you'll get something out of it.
You've laid out your apex methodology, as you call it, and that is, you do an assessment, you build a plan, you execute, then you exit. Pretty simple 4 points. That's the same strategy that even Jim Rohn was talking about years ago. It's still the same strategy. The problem is that third word, execution. And so many business owners get the knowledge without trying to execute. So, friends, I'm going to challenge you to check out Alexis's book. It's powerful. We'll have a link to it in the show notes and connect with him on LinkedIn. As you can tell, he's a wealth of knowledge. And friends, I know several of you out there are directly within his client wheelhouse. So if you're trying to find a clear path to $100 million valuation, if that's you, especially for my friends across the pond who like to listen to me, you got a brother right there in your own backyard who's an expert, as you can tell. And I would challenge you to reach out to him and see if he can help you in his business. Alexis, thank you so much for your time today, brother. It's been very good.
Thank you, Justin. Really appreciate it.
So, friends, there's another episode. Becoming a DecaMillionaire is not hard. It's almost a mandate. It's almost a requirement as a business owner today. Friends, set your sights high and then charge hell with a water pistol. We'll talk to you next week.